Hey everyone, it's Mikki here. You're listening to Wikipedia, and this week on the podcast I speak to Kyal Van Der Leest, founder of LVLUP Health, for a wide-ranging and clinically grounded conversation on peptides, gut health, GLP-1s, and modern metabolic dysfunction. Kyal unpacks his core philosophy that many of today's health challenges are predictable outcomes of the environments and lifestyles we now inhabit, and why targeted supplementation and protocols may be necessary to offset these exposures. We explore peptides as a bridge between naturopathic and conventional medicine, including when they are appropriate, how delivery routes change outcomes, and how to differentiate common compounds like BPC 157, GHK, KPV, and lorazotide. And if you have no idea on what any of these are, that's fine, because we unpack all of this. We also discuss GLP-1 agonists, their risks, misconceptions, gut-motility paradoxes, and why fixing the gut first is non-negotiable, and so much more. Really enjoyed this conversation with Kyal. For those of you unfamiliar, Kyal Van Der Leest is a qualified nutritionist, naturopath, and functional health strategist with a deep-rooted passion for human optimization and evidence-based supplementation. He is the founder and formulator behind LVLUP Health, a science-driven wellness brand dedicated to developing advanced practitioner-grade supplements that support the body's innate healing systems. Kyal's journey into health innovation began in clinical and retail environments, including hyperbaric oxygen therapy and high-volume supplement settings, where he saw firsthand the limitations of conventional products and protocols. This sparked his mission to create targeted formulations that combine clinically relevant compounds, peptides, and high-quality actives to simplify and enhance health outcomes. Today, his products are stocked globally and recognized for their efficacy within both practitioner and biohacking communities. Beyond formulation, Kyal is known for his commitment to practical, mechanism-based approaches to gut health, inflammation, recovery, and longevity. I really enjoyed this conversation with Kyal. He is such a smart cookie, and honestly, he seems to have packed double the amount of knowledge into his short years on the planet. I think he is we chat about his age, I think he might be early 30s or something crazy like that. So I think you're really going to love this conversation. I've got a link to LVLUP Health in the show notes and the Instagram page as well. So absolutely check them out if you're interested, and I think you will be after this conversation. Before we crack on into the interview, though, I would like to remind you that the best way to support this podcast is to like this podcast, share it with a friend, and subscribe on your favorite podcast listening platform. This increases the visibility of Wikipedia and amongst literally thousands of other podcasts out there, so more people get to hear from the experts that I have on the show, such as Kyal Van Der Leest. All right, team, enjoy this conversation. Kyal, thank you so much for joining me this morning. You're on the other side of Auckland, and of course I was a bit surprised that you were even in New Zealand, you were based in New Zealand actually. Saw the light, left Australia, well done. I say that, although actually I really like Australia as a country, if I'm honest, but really great to have this chat. One thing I'm super surprised about is just how young you look.
Thanks.
I've heard you on several podcasts, and I really love your information. You appear, by all accounts, to be a complete brainiac, actually. So is this peptides? Is this what the secret is?
Well, I'm only 32, if that. Maybe I do look my age. So yeah, I'll
actually, I take that back. You absolutely look your age. Yep, 32 is what it is.
Yeah, I guess I was really obsessed, and probably somewhat arrogantly speaking, have the knowledge of someone in their 40s or 50s, because I've been so obsessed for at least 10, 15 years in peptides and complementary health and complementary medicine and all that sort of stuff. When all my friends are out partying and having a good time, I was just being an absolute nerd, learning all about peptides, learning all about nutraceuticals, botanicals, and nutrition, all that sort of stuff. And selfishly, I did that because, not selfishly, selfish, kind of both apply. My mum had a battle with cancer for 8 years, so I just wanted to take some level of control over a very challenging situation for her. And I kind of made it my life's purpose from my 20s to figure out cancer and what causes it, and what you need to support when someone's dealing with cancer. And it turns out it's a lot of things. Trying to reverse engineer what causes it leads you down the rabbit hole and the route of detoxification and metals and chemicals, glyphosates, endocrine disruptors. So I learned all of that stuff in a very short period of time, trying to figure out the why. And then once you figure out what you might think caused it, you sort of work backwards and say, all right, well, how do we remove it? And that's where you sort of get into the deep biochemistry of detoxification and lymphatics and phase 1, phase 2 liver and bile flow and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, my journey's been a very sharp and steep learning curve, driven by that motivation to help my mum. And now she's no longer with us. I still that work ethic and apply it to different things. Now for me, it's been mold and my partner, hormonal issues, whatever it is. I just love being a massive nerd.
Yeah, which is amazing. And of course, you've sort of taken that own knowledge, which was clearly very selfless, and actually have created some, by all accounts, pretty remarkable products. And I say that not through experience, because you and I were just chatting about the availability of them. They're somewhat limited for Australia and New Zealand, but you've been on podcasts with several people who I really respect. Dr. Tina Moore, Dr. Carrie Jones are two, who I've listened to for years. And it's rare that they so effusively just love the products. And that's what I got when I listened to them talking about your products, which are not just peptides, but predominantly this is where you spend a lot of your time sort of creating products, etc.
Yeah, well, I think the reason why those guys like the products is they're naturopaths like myself. And there's a lot of peptide companies and people in the peptide space with no concept of naturopathy, or they don't know what it is. They look at Ozempic or GLP-1s, pharmaceuticals will be their entry point to peptides. And they look at it from the approach of, I'm just trying to move the body as fast as possible in a direction without consideration for the repercussions. Tina Moore is excellent at educating in GLP-1s because she has that holism, that naturopathic approach to them. We're going to utilize this in the lowest dose possible, the naturopathic principle of work low and work your way up to the heavier hitters. GLP-1s are a heavy hitter, but in a low dose, you can get majority of the benefits without majority of the side effects. So that's sort of the mentality and the approach that I really like in our space. Is if someone studied naturopathy, even if they are an MD or a chiropractor, having that philosophical base in how you do life, how you do formulating, or how you do your practice is, I think, something all doctors really need to go back to, because it was Hippocrates and the Hippocratic Oath is more now the naturopathic philosophy than it used to be for medicine. So I think that mentality needs to that mentality needs to engulf all of functional medicine and mainstream medicine. And if that mentality alone is all that sort of sticks, then there'll be just a lot of downstream things that will benefit humanity if people start to think like naturopaths.
Yeah, super interesting, isn't it? Because, a lot of the pushback with what doctors should be trained in with allopathic medicine is, there's no room in the curriculum to teach this kind of information to doctors, and which I can appreciate that. I also think, Kyal, there needs to be more appreciation for the likes of naturopaths out there. So often people in the space are dismissed because it's not Western medicine, which is just crazy to me in this day and age, given the absolute failure of Western medicine, and to actually prevent a lot of the challenges that people are, or even sort of explain a lot of the challenges that people are sort of grappling with these days. They're very good at a pill to stop something or to cure something, well, in some space, but yeah, but not at all interested in other avenues of actually health, just disease.
Yeah, well, I believe if even if in the first year they had the functional medicine pathway promoted as an option for them, we'd find a lot of doctors go into it for the right reasons. They want to help people altruistically. It's not just the financial benefits, but I'd say most doctors want to actually help people, and they're just not taught it. And it's not even presented as really an option from day one. So if all it was like, all right, here's one route you can take. This is a first-year subject. This is the foundations of human nutrition for prevention of disease. So many of them would take that up versus some of the other stuff. Like I've looked at the medicine degrees and the courses, and first year is kind of just like a lot of fluff. Like it's medicine, so it's still heavy and intense, and they're probably not to say that a nutritional one would be fluff. It would be very hard for them to do, and possibly a lot of them would throw it out because they don't see the benefit of it. But I still think that everyone in medicine needs to start looking at this, especially people who are already or new to the field of medicine who haven't done it. If they want to stay relevant in this shifting tide globally, where people are calling out the failures of the system, of the drug model, the pharmaceuticals, and even surgeries that are unnecessary too, they're going to want to upskill themselves with this sort of knowledge. And even if they don't implement it in their own practice, at least having a respect for it, and then also having a respect for someone who's done the 4 to 5 to 7 years of naturopathic and nutritional training to work in as an integrative part of the treatment for whoever comes into their office.
Yeah, I completely agree. I was chatting to a client online this morning actually, and she came back with she's got severe fatigue and for a range of reasons, but her vitamin D was 42, and the doctor was like, oh, it's fine. It's summer. You'll get out there now, and you'll lift your vitamin D. And she sort of described her mother's experience of being super anemic, but not actually getting any sort of treatment for it. And one of the reasons why she was refused a vitamin D booster for what it's worth, because it was burdening the health system post-COVID. So we're just trying to unburden the health system, and it's like all you're really doing is kicking that can down the road, and it's building steam, it's building momentum. It's a crazy mentality.
Yeah. I mean, the foundation, what a doctor can and can't do, you sometimes be like, all right, well, that's fair enough. That is a systemic problem. But at the same time, there's plenty of doctors out there who just kind of are willing to take a little bit of risk to try and help their patients. And they're the ones that are usually booked out months in advance versus the ones you can get in 10 minutes. So, yeah. For those who want to have a maintained and a long career in medicine as it's shifting, definitely upskill with some nutritional knowledge would be my recommendation to them. And peptides too. Like the good thing about peptides is they are in the tool belt of doctors if they so choose, mainly in America, to be fair, but they are things that doctors can prescribe in America and in Europe and New Zealand. Yeah, you might want to be a little bit careful if you're a New Zealand or Australian MD, but they are the bridge between natural, because they're naturally produced, and pharmaceutical, because they have pharmaceutical-like effects. They're pretty amazing compounds, and as a naturopath, I had a little bit of resistance to them the first time I heard, because I'm like, I don't need to introduce something foreign to the body. But then I learned more about them and where they're made and what they do, and it just made a heck of a lot of sense to utilize these alongside of the naturopathic tools that we had been using and naturopaths have been using for 20 to 30 years, since that sort of became a not mainstream, but a lot more recognized, a lot more common profession for people to know about.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think maybe 10 years ago, you might have heard on different podcasts, people talking maybe a little bit about peptides, but there certainly weren't the focus that there is today. And now it seems that all you have to do is jump on social media, depending on what your algorithm is sort of spitting out at you and your age group, etc. Everyone's talking about various peptides, which are super helpful, and to your point, very readily available in places in the world. Does it worry you, Kyal, with the sort of the freedom with which people are able to sort of administer without sort of deep knowledge around this? Do we need deep knowledge to administer peptides?
The pharmaceutical ones, yes, I believe so, because they're not naturally produced and they're modified to have longer half-lives or interact a different way. And then you kind of can run into problems with them, like a GLP-1, if that's dosed incorrectly, huge plethora of side effects. A lot of the naturally occurring ones, less so. I mean, you don't want to ever overdo the dose, but like with the BPC, if you accidentally administered 10x or 100x what you meant to do, you're not going to actually have any problems with it. You've just wasted a heck of a lot of money, because this is naturally made in the stomach acid, gets systemic, and it's broken down by hydrolase enzymes. It's no to force a pathway. It's not going to basically put you in hospital if you overdo something like a BPC versus a GLP-1 or even like exogenous insulin, for example. Though these are pharmaceutical ones, they will have very clear and obvious side effects short term if you overdo it or do it the wrong way. The other thing to sort of go back, do I have concern over it? Yeah, I do, because there's a lot of people mixing many different things and they're using peptides to bypass doing the hard work. That's my biggest issue with the GLP-1s. They will work very well for weight loss, but will it stay off forever? And, have you set yourself up to keep it off if you're no longer on the peptide? And we're seeing it now with this new wave of addiction to GLP-1s where people just don't want to come off of them because mentally they're finally losing weight. And, it's a means to an end, but has to be an end to the use of it. You can't just have them forever. And there's no long-term studies using these things. Like if you're just constantly on a GLP-1 for the rest of your life, what's the repercussion of that? We don't know. But hypothetically, I'd say you'd probably struggle to put on muscle mass. Your bone density would drop. Your digestion would probably be compromised with long-term use or even high dose short-term use as well. So we need to be a bit more cautious with those pharmaceutical ones for sure. And they are very readily available, but for better or worse, the pharmaceutical companies that own the patents on them are going after all these online vendors for selling them. So that might dry up in the future and limit it to practitioner prescription only, probably.
I've chatted to a couple of people about GLP-1s, and in their view, they are looking at them the way that others look at statins or blood pressure medications, as these are lifelong medications, which, I mean, I'm not in agreement on everything that they say, but it's interesting your view of actually GLP-1 is something that you should take with the view to come off, rather than this is just your obesity medication for the rest of your life.
Yeah, if you look at the risk analysis to it, is like if you are severely overweight and this is going to be the thing that gets you to a healthy weight, please use it. That will the improvement in inflammation, in quality of life, ability to actually get into exercise because you don't have all this extra weight that's impairing your ability to even get going and giving you that momentum shift, giving you the mentality shift. That's such a powerful tool that I'm like, great, go for it. Just do it under the supervision of someone who knows what they're doing. But if you keep going on it once you've achieved that, then you've got a dependency on this. And you should be able to live your life independent of everything, naturopathic or pharmaceuticals. Every product I ever make is not really made for long-term continued use for years. It's interventional. Use it as needed. Bring it in to rectify a problem. Take it for 1 to 3 months, depending on how bad it is, and then see how you go without it. So that's how I look at everything. The only thing I'm currently taking of my whole range of 40 products is my magnesium product every day. That's it's basically now. I'm kind of done 5-10 years of taking exorbitant amounts of supplements, and I'm just trying to minimalistic strip it back, see how the body feels without them. And so far, magnesium's the only thing I really need. My magnesium and L-theanine and Apigen and night sleep blend. So that's basically all I take at the moment, which is awesome to be able to say that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. Kyal, can we sort of center on the peptides for a bit? Like you mentioned a few names that I don't think people will be familiar with. I mean, obviously GLP-1 is one that people will see all of the time. Possibly they've heard of, BPC 157, which I believe is now, it used to be more readily available than what it is. But there are specific peptides which actually do specific things in the body. Is that how you view it? And we should, depending on the health concern or the particular purpose of what we're after, we choose a different peptide depending on.
Yeah, absolutely. The body makes thousands of these things endogenously, and as far as peptides that you can supplement or bring into your life via a supplement or an injectable or a topical or a nasal spray, there's probably about 100 to 150 of them that sort of are on menu through these research sites or via prescription from a doctor. The first example I always say in podcasts is most diabetics know peptides because they have to inject insulin. That's the first and one of the best ones that's ever been made, life-saving. GLP-1s like Ozempic, Mounjaro, tirzepatide, retatrutide, they are the weight loss ones that got basically famous because of Kim Kardashian taking it and losing a heap of weight and all these other celebrities getting on it. And if you've ever been to America and seen their TV commercials, everything is Ozempic over there. It's absolutely wild how much media exposure it gets and how popular they are over there. And even so that every single news article that you see talking about peptides always mentions them now. So those are the weight loss peptides, and like obesity is such a big problem in Western countries that, of course, something that is very strongly moving the needle is going to get that attention, and that's the GLP-1. They're awesome asterisk pharmaceuticals, so need to be used with caution. The other ones that are starting to get a little bit more popular is body protective compound, which I mentioned before. That's BPC
157.
Yep, there's a list of so many, and they all kind of sound like a combination of letters and numbers. It's really hard to remember them. Like oxytocin's one, that one's a little bit easier. You can use that one, and that's like the love peptide or the feel-good hormone, so to speak. You can take that one, but BPC is probably the claim to fame that my business has, and it's sort of helped LVLUP grow where it is now. And that endogenously, meaning made by your own body, produced peptide is made in the stomach acid for the purposes of healing fast. Basically, your stomach is a very volatile area full of acid and enzymes, and you need really fast cell turnover in the stomach. Otherwise, if you get an ulcer or you get, some level of compromise in your stomach acid, then that can be really bad. And so that's why we make that peptide in there. Whatever's not used through the stomach trickles down through the small intestines, and then if you've got a pretty good gut health, it'll get all the way down to the large intestines and be able to help the intestinal tract heal. That's naturally produced. Where the problem lies nowadays is we have a lot of insults to our gut health. We have gluten, glyphosate, pesticides, antibiotics, alcohol. The modern day life is making it pretty hard on our gut lining to stay strong, to stay uninflamed, and to keep its integrity. So that's where naturopaths come in with their curcumins or their cipulary elms or marshmallow roots to sort of feed the bacteria that produce the short chain fatty acids, which create the fuel for the gut lining to fuel it to have a bit more resistance and resilience. But peptides are really getting popular for the purposes of gut health because they are supplementing what is now a deficiency of the endogenously produced peptide and allowing the gut to heal significantly faster than if you were to just try with L-glutamine and bone broth or collagen protein. So that's sort of the claim to fame for BPC is gut healing, but the mechanisms for healing the gut lining, for healing the stomach are improved collagen network formation, improved blood vessel formation, and there's about another 7 other, what would you call them? There's about 7 other accelerated healing pathways that BPC triggers that if you get it systemically, it can actually work on injuries, for example, like if you had a tennis elbow or you'd partially torn a ligament or a tendon or something like that. If you get it in, which is why people will inject it to make sure they get all of the peptide where they need it to be. If you get it in, then it will accelerate the healing processes of the connective tissue in your body, which is the ligaments and tendons. And that's why a lot of athletes have been swearing by it and using it for significantly decreasing their recovery time, increasing the speed in which they heal. So that one's BPC. And I'm looking at my big, long peptide reference cheat sheet guide, and there's about 3 pages worth of them on there, and they all do.
Yeah, and it's interesting, BPC, has there been some sort of regulation put on athletes now with BPC 157? Is that correct? There's some sort of, people look at it as some sort of performance enhancement or because they're able to recover better?
100%. It shouldn't be, because it should just be equal playing field. And if every athlete took it, then fantastic. But the direct quote was it elicits an unfair advantage and is not in the spirit of the sport, because if someone takes it, they'll heal 40 to 60% faster than if someone doesn't. The other thing it does that's was the other contention point is it upregulates your growth hormone receptor density. So that's going to help you recover faster and put on muscle a little bit faster. So that was that little asterisk loophole that there we go. There's a slight anabolic effect. So we'll just lump it in with testosterone and SARMs and all these other things that are banned. So that one is banned for WADA, ASADA, NASADA, if that's a thing, athletes.
Yeah.
And a lot of, if anyone's professionally competing, you'd want to make sure that this is a a compound that you're allowed to use, and I would probably err on the side of caution and say it won't be, just because of that unfair advantage, not because, unlike other things that have safety issues, this doesn't. It's just they don't like things that sort of help people. There's a lot of things on the banned list that are incredible for performance, and I would personally love to take and can take because I'm not competing, but yeah, it's they even like creatine athletes are scared to take that because they're worried what it'll be contaminated with. And when your whole career and your whole life depends on you being a clean athlete, then BPC is one that you just definitely have to avoid, unfortunately, because it would be so beneficial and helpful for every athlete, especially ones where they have potential brain injury too, like anything with a head,
Yes.
rugby, football, even soccer, all these like micro traumas. The benefits for BPC for post-concussive injury is just huge and phenomenal. The angiogenesis, the connective tissue formation in the brain, the synaptogenesis even. Like, it would just be so good to be able to have in your medicine cabinet. And if anyone has it, quickly, get them to hospital, but get them on BPC to rectify the damage. There's lots of animal studies looking at it for post-concussive injuries and post-traumatic brain injury. I've forgotten the exact term they use, but yeah, essentially mitigates a lot of the long-term damage that can come from those.
Oh, that's super interesting because, of course, athletes are one group that are more at risk of concussion, but like just your general everyday person, like that's, that kind of brain injury thing is very real. Kyle, are there any human trials actually on PPC 157
That's been the big thing that I've been trying to push for the last year is the human trials. There was one human study done back when there was a patent on it, and now the patent's expired. No one's really willing to pull the trigger on spending millions of dollars for everyone in the world to kind of just use the results of it and be millions of dollars richer than the company that had to spend the money on studying it. So I'm trying to organize an effort where myself, my brand, and a few other ones who sell BPC, we all kind of chip in to get these studies done. But it's very slow to have people uptake, and they're like, "Well, you start," or because you're looking at easily for human studies millions of dollars, unfortunately, and probably a half a decade worth of effort required for it. So it'll be tricky.
I feel like that's a bit of a misunderstanding out there in the population. Like, you're always sort of like, when you say something, people are like, "Oh, where is the research for this?" And it's like, well, I mean, there's no huge pharmaceutical company that is able to, fund research that we need in some of these more sort of natural sort of alternatives. So part of it is just it's a cost thing, and it's not necessarily an efficacy thing. It's just there's just no money to do that kind of thing.
Exactly. If it was patentable, I guarantee you it would be in human studies already. But because it's naturally produced in your body, the only route I see BPC 157 being studied is if pharma managed to recategorize peptides and then they managed to modify this away from how it is found naturally. That's how GLP-1s work, because glucagon-like peptide, GLP, is made endogenously. And the reason it can be a drug is they modify it to last a week rather than a few hours. So therefore, it is not something, it is significantly different from something made in the body, therefore is a patentable and ownable drug versus BPC. No, not applicable.
Yeah. So is there an option, Kyle, off the top of your head, for people who are not able to take BPC for the reasons where, regulation of their sport or whatever, that might benefit from another type of peptide that might not necessarily be on the banned list at the minute?
The other one that I thought of is TB500 or TB4, but that made it onto the ban list before even BPC, because that does have more of a potent musculoskeletal recovery effect. And anytime you're repairing and recovering muscle, there will be a level of anabolism, anabolic effect that you got it banned. Actually, in Australia, that peptide got banned all the way back in 2006 or 2008 when the Essendon Bombers, the football team, were doing their peptides and got involved in the peptide scandal. TB500 was one of the peptides that they were using, so that one got banned pretty early in the piece. As far as other ones you could use as a competing athlete, it really depends on what the regulations say, because even in some sports they say if you take something that violates the spirit of the sport or the overarching theme of why they're regulating things and why it's not it's more of a blanket statement that they're banning things that elicit an unfair advantage, that sort of thing. And if it can be argued that taking another peptide like, let's say GHK copper, for example, if you were taking that has some of the benefits of BPC, but the regulatory body could also argue, well, it's helping you in the same way that BPC is, it's helping you in the recovery. So even though it's not explicitly listed, we believe that could be potentially, something that should have been banned, and we're going to impose what would they impose? Punishment on the athlete as if they'd taken the thing that was explicitly mentioned anyway. So GHK is probably the top of my list of other things that could work alongside it or in replacement of BPC, but you just want to be really cautious with that one. If you're injecting it, especially if you're injecting it, injectables are a lot more of a hardcore way to do peptides than taking them as a capsule, or GHK is small enough. It's only 3 amino acids that you can use it topically in your skincare. It's going to work locally on your skin before it does a whole lot for anywhere else in your body. But there's still different routes of administration for these peptides, and how you take it really depends on where you want it to be used properly. So
okay, well, that's interesting. I was wanting to ask you about that administration, because obviously you can take it orally, you can inject, it's transdermal, etc. Does this change the efficacy of it? And you mentioned peptide length. Is that one of the reasons, is that one of the sort of defining features of how you might administer?
Yep, 100%. The pharmacokinetics, so where you want the peptide to be delivered, would be the first thing I'd consider. So if you want to heal your gut lining, a capsule, if you can survive the stomach acid and the enzymes, is going to be the best choice for healing the gut. Just makes sense. Probably second to a suppository if you need large bowel support. There are suppositories of BPC and KPV, another anti-inflammatory gut healing peptide that you can take. But if you have an injury, or if you want to make sure that you're getting the maximum absorption of the peptide, nothing can beat injectable, because what you inject bypasses all of the gut, all of the enzymes, all of the acid, all of the liver's first pass metabolism, and you deliver like 99.9, if not 100% of what you've injected is going to get in your body. The risk to the injectables is what's not declared on the vial. So you inject BPC that might have some level of metal contaminations, or LPS, or bacteriotoxins, or whatever else is in the vial. That's going to get injected too. So that's where I don't have that risk to my business, because we do capsules and we test everything. But there are plenty of online vendors selling BPC for 25 US to 50 US for a vial, and you think, great, that's a significantly better deal, I'm getting 100%. But to sell it for that price, there's no chance they're testing it, because it's a very expensive process to do the testing, like thousands of dollars per material for every single batch that you run, and you have to do multiple. So really, at the end of the day, financially, you're spending at least $15,000 on testing per product that you sell. So that's not going to have been done, and there's no guarantee of the purity if they're not actually testing it too. So you might think BPC doesn't work because you've injected it and it did nothing, but did you buy it from a reputable vendor? Did you get it prescribed? How did you take it? And did you, even with the injectables, the whole reconstitution with water and injectable process, there is some room for error with that part as well. So that's why I really prefer capsules, and everything that I sell in my range is capsules because of the ease of it. We dose it guaranteed like a milligram or microgram quantity per capsule, so you don't even need to think about how much to take when you're just presented with this little vial of powder that you need to put water in. And the other thing is, if there are contaminants, which we make sure there's not, but if there are contaminants, taking it as an oral capsule versus an injectable, your gut's is going to try and not let as many of those in as possible. Like heavy metals, for example, injectable, 100% of that ends in circulation because it's just has been injected. Versus if you had a small amount of heavy metals in some other person's capsule, only 0.01% or 0.1%, depending on permeability of your gut, does actually get absorbed systemically. That's why when you have heavy metal laden tuna or a large fish that you eat, it's a slow trickle to accumulate into that toxicity, because not much of it gets absorbed, but it just eventually does if you keep smashing your body with heaps of it. So that's the safety of a capsule. Topical would be even more safe, because skin's a really difficult nut to crack if you want to get it systemic, and you'd need very small peptides for topical, like GHK being 3, KPV is also 3. BBC doesn't work topically because it's 15 amino acids, so it's too long. And all the ones that are injectable that work are usually very large, like the growth hormone secretagogues like ipamorelin, tesamorelin, CJC 1295. They're all very large, 20 plus amino acid chains, and would not work orally because that 20 amino acid chain needs to stay intact in that sequence for it to actually have the benefits. If it broke down whatsoever, then it's just going to be nullified and dead, and basically you just have oral amino acids very expensive amino acids that you've taken. So yeah.
How many amino acids in GLP?
A lot. That's why they're not really doing too well. I think it's something in the 20s or 30s. It's a very large one, and they are figuring out fragments of it that they want to use for oral ones. There's a new one that they're going to bring out, and if you think Ozempic was big, just wait until they bring that one out. I think it's called ATX or something like that. I've forgotten the numbers, but yeah, they are looking at an oral one. But the way they're making it work orally is by using a heap of a permeation enhancer alongside of it. Permeation enhancer creates permeability of the gut lining to allow larger peptides to get across, because there would be a cutoff for how large a peptide can be to get into circulation. So they're what would you call it? Fitting a round peg, a square peg in a round hole approach is to just mash the gut lining with permeation enhancers. So yeah, people will kind of have really bad gut health from that product, which I'm already anticipating the side effects from it, because that Eli Lilly, the same company who owned tirzepatide, own the patents to that one, and they're already doing a lot of studies, and that will be 2026, 2027's blockbuster. Just mark my word.
Yeah, interesting. And of course, one of the, I mean, I'm hearing people talk about GLP-1. I'm here, like, obviously a side effect is the slow motility, like things just move a lot slower. Yet, of course, other people are like, well, that's the mechanism of action. Of course, that's going to happen. But what are the ramifications, Kyal, of someone who is taking it at the recommended dose and then experiencing that gut motility issue?
So the first thing that I would do if someone ever considered doing a GLP-1 is ensuring that you've got adequate stomach acid and enzymes. That you should just do irrespective of if you take it or not. That's going to make a significant improvement to your digestive health. You're going to not rely on your bacteria to ferment the food that you couldn't digest properly, which is one of the primary drivers of bloating and gut issues for people. And then you're going to absorb your essential amino acids. You're going to absorb your minerals better if you're breaking it down better. It just makes sense. And if you go into a GLP-1 journey having not addressed stomach acid and enzymes, it's just slowing things down even more. They're going to ferment even more, and the bacterial populations are going to, start to take over in areas where they're not meant to, and that's known as small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or SIBO. You don't want that if you don't like looking like a distended gorilla all the time. So my concern is if lots of people took those without supporting their gut health prior and during, then they're going to run into that issue eventually.
Well, mate, you've literally just described 99.9% of the people taking GLP. Like, no one talks about gut health with regards to GLP-1. Like, it's not even a quick fix thing. It's just they probably have no idea that this was even something they need to worry about.
Yeah, exactly. And they probably didn't know they had gut issues until they took GLP-1 and it exacerbated it or really brought it to the surface for them. And that's my big concern with this oral one, is it's going to have the same mechanism of slowed motility whilst concurrently ripping up the gut lining to get the peptide delivered. So it's going to be even worse with that new one. But, at the same time, if you're into gut health and want to support people's gut journeys, and that's part of your business model, then you're going to see a massive influx of people who need your help. And that's why I got on Tina's podcast, was BPC, GHK, KPV, and lorazotide, the 4 gut healing peptides. She just saw that as the fix to this solution, is like people's gut is absolutely getting ruined from these peptides. Here's some other peptides to sort of undo the first peptides, the side effects from that. So,
Kyal, do you see in your clinic, or have you heard from the likes of Tina, that actually sort of co-administering or taking them alongside the GLP-1 is actually like helping people with the entire sort of journey?
Yeah, well, it's a case of there's always a yes asterisk. If you are taking too high of a dose, then you're creating a lot of demand and a lot of pressure on that GI repair product to fix a problem. right? So, but if you're doing it in an intelligent manner, in the lowest amount, if that doesn't work your way up a little bit and work your way up a little bit and find your sweet spot, then yeah, you don't need to take the GI repair or the BPC orally to support the gut health as frequently, and it will definitely significantly make inroads or help people with their digestion even while they're on the GLP-1 that's kind of working the other way. So
Yeah, because I am aware of people who have sort of gone on like Monjaro, for example, and over the course of, let's say, 4 months, they've lost like 17 kilos that you wouldn't have thought that they had to lose, and now and they're reporting that the next stage, according to their doctors, to go up one more dose to the highest dose of 10 milligrams, despite the fact that they're at a dose now, which actually they're like, sort of, I think I'm done here, and I'm a little bit afraid I don't know what my next move is, because if the doctor's schedule appears to be you start low and you have to keep moving it on, and I don't know that people are aware that actually they've got a little bit of decision making that they can, they themselves can decide whether or not. But what's the go with that sort of the dosing that people are being told that they must do?
Oh, you don't ever have to do what your doctor tells you. In fact, my biased opinion is kind of start by saying I'll do the opposite of that and see find the middle ground. But for GLP-1 medication, I always have thought that the starting dose is sort of where I would end the dose. It's always been a little bit too high in my opinion, and that's why Tina Moore's got so much success is the microdosing of GLP-1s. It's not even microdosing, it's more actually accurate dosing than it is microdosing. Yeah. People are just going way. If there's a bell-shaped curve for the right dose, that small amount is right up the top of the bell, and then the dose that people get put on in the end is the far right on the bell shape and way too high, and that's where you get significantly diminishing returns in the effects, and that's where you get significantly increased risk of all the side effects like the gut motility issues, the loss of bone mineral density. The other thing too is like at those higher doses, nutrient deficiencies start to become such a problem because you're just not going to be eating enough. And yeah, like you'll need to replenish your B vitamins. How well are you going to be absorbing all the minerals? And like you can create this metabolic shit show from it, or sorry, you can create this.
Yes, you're right.
This problem with someone's metabolism, like their thyroid will under-regulate because the calories have not been coming in concurrently. There's not been enough of the micronutrients to support the thyroid health, or iron levels might start to drop because again, like you're not going to be absorbing your iron if you've been put on such a high dose. So yeah, there's just a lot of room for error with these ones, especially in the higher doses. So I definitely recommend people take breaks from them and reset their tolerance to them. I get the theory of we need to keep upping it because you are getting a little bit of resistance or tolerance to the effect of it. And you don't want those same receptors. This applies to all peptides, to be frank. You don't want to be hitting the same receptor for a peptide over and over and over again, because the same way that the effects of caffeine start to diminish over time, the effects of the peptides will diminish if you're just daily or weekly smashing those receptors sites with the peptide. That's just kind of how receptor density works. So taking breaks from them and doing the smallest dose possible is to not, create that down regulation straight away. It's like if you're sensitive to caffeine, taking the GLP high dose is like having a gram of caffeine a day. It's like way too much, and you're going to have all the side effects. So yeah, definitely find the right dose, and then also introduce natural things that can support your own GLP-1. You don't need a peptide forever when this peptide is naturally produced via having good populations of Akkermansia muciniphila, or a commensal, bacterial species that is meant to live in your gut and feeds off allergic acids, allergic tannins, things found in pomegranate, apple peel, cranberries. All of those, polyphenol-rich berries are going to really just set you up for not needing these long term.
Yeah. Do you think that there is efficacy for that, given the I guess how different GLP as a medication works compared to GLP-1 foods? Because I see all the time I see two things on social media. I see not necessarily dietitians, maybe nutrition coaches or whatever, saying, come on my GLP-1 diet. You do not need a medication. This works exactly like the drug. And I'm like, I don't think so. And the other thing I see, Kyle, use our GLP-1 patches. What you do is put this little like pomegranate patch on, and which people don't actually read the fine print of actually what they're doing. But is there, in your view, you're so knowledgeable on this, but so I'm curious, like I would have thought that it wouldn't really hold a candle to what the medication does.
Oh, no, not at all. Naturally produced GLP-1 only hangs around a few hours, and then you have to stimulate it again. And then otherwise, then you just start to feel hungry. So basically you want a good amount of it to be produced naturally. You want bile flow. That's a strong GLP-1. But honestly, these drugs last for days. You only have to inject them once a week. That is their unique pharmacology, and their design is to hang around for a long time. So you don't ever have that surge of, I feel a bit hungry today, or even within 3 or 4 days, the appetite just is not there because of the drug. And the best natural GLP-1 that I've ever found, I've used in combination with other ones, and I would say 25 to 30% is as effective as the GLPs. And
okay,
that's pretty good, but like you had to get so many compounds to do it, and you had to continually take it every day. Otherwise, it'll just die off, and then you'll just be back to close to your baseline.
Yeah. And Kyle, so you mentioned that at the lowest dose, is that 2.5 milligrams? Yeah. With that in mind, like, because a lot of the symptoms that people are trying to, I guess, resolve for them are things like food noise and I guess hunger, obviously, and appetite. At what dose, if you have any idea, and I appreciate this isn't like, this is me asking your opinion, this is not because we know that the research isn't there, but do you have any sense of, a starting dose that might, for the majority of people, actually address some of that other stuff, so they're then able to do a lot of the lifestyle stuff that will actually be the thing that will help in the long as well?
I can't do a blanket one for everyone, because if 150 kilogram person asked me, then I'd say, well, your starting dose is probably 1.25, and then you want to work up maybe 5 sort of thing. I would push the bell shape a bit higher for that context. But for someone like myself, if I was looking to cut down 5% body fat, then 0.25 would be where I start. I go up to 0.5 if that wasn't the right. And you kind of have to play with it to find your sweet spot. You'll know, because that food noise is such an obvious cue for you to say, all right, well, it's back, so maybe I need to go up a bit more. And then I would never push it past that. For myself, I'd never push it past 2.5, because you're kind of going down a bit of a slippery slope of, all right, great, the food noise has stopped at 10, but then it's like being on testosterone replacement therapy. If you push it up to the point where your exogenous levels / your blood levels are over 1500, which is, just for reference, probably double what the high end of most people's testosterone is, you'll feel great and you'll want to keep doing it. But then that's when the side effects and the shrinking of the testes, or hair loss, or all the other negatives, even like feminization through like estrogen, testosterone becoming estrogen, all those side effects can happen once you push past that safe level. And I definitely believe GLPs have that sort of safe ceiling and floor level of between 0.5 and, I'd say the highest I'd ever want someone to go is 5. So that would be my dosages.
Top limit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because I imagine that people who are listening to this, who are on like the highest dose right now, might be wondering, well, sort of weird too. But you mentioned before about sort of coming off for a time to resensitize yourself. And I guess, and I mean, I'm just putting words into your mouth here, actually, but you can tell me if I'm right or wrong. But like, would possibly the next step be start again, but at a lower dose, because you're going to be a bit more sensitive to it? Is that sort of the idea around that?
I need to make a disclaimer too. When I'm talking about the dosages, I've been actually talking about not the single GLP-1 like semaglutide. I've been talking about in combination 5 milligrams of the 3, like the 2 or 3. So there's single agonists, which is just tirzepatide, which is just a GLP-1. Then there's semaglutide, Ozempic. Then there is tirzepatide, which is a dual agonist, which has the GLP-1 and a GIP, gastrointestinal peptide. When I said 5 milligrams, it would be a combination of both of those, sort of being a 50-50 split. Sorry, what was your question about that? How do you come back to doses? Is that what you were?
Yeah, so you'd come back in a like, if let's say you're on 10 milligrams, you come off, resensitize, however long that will take. Not sure, you might be able to help. And then would you suggest potentially coming back on at a lower dose?
Yeah, exactly. Kind of like if a guy was coming off testosterone, if they'd been doing anabolic steroids, I'd say, yeah, you need to come off of it, but taper it down slowly so you don't have this massive crash. Luckily, GLP-1s compared to testosterone, the repercussions for how well you feel will just be hunger versus a man not having testosterone anymore can be pretty serious for how they feel. But definitely bring it down and like understand the journey as well about it. Like if you've been on the high dose and you've lost as an overweight person 50 kilograms, if in that resensitization period you add on 2 or 3 because you still all of a sudden have the appetite back, understand that's going to happen and it needs to happen to allow you to be long term in a healthier position than if you just kept that food noise at bay, but then your bone density drops because you just refuse to take a break from it. So definitely taper it back slowly. Don't go the other way, and take a break. You'd want at least a month off for every 3 months on it as well. That's the same for every peptide, to be honest. So, and just be okay in that month and know I'm doing this to make it work better long term. And in that month, use that as an opportunity, knowing that you have to be off of it to try and build the habits that mean that, if you do go back on it, that you don't go on it as long as you were prior. So a lot of people who go on these too, unless the government or a doctor's done a script for them, they're expensive compounds to be on. And you really, again, like everything I say, it should just be a short-term intervention to get you where you want to be in your health. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I know a lot of people who have sort of gone on them and they have the best intentions to actually implement good lifestyle habits. But I wonder whether they're almost like they're a victim of their own success when they start seeing themselves lose weight. Like, I'll get onto that next week. I'll not recognize actually they're just choosing not to do that stuff until it's a bit late.
Yeah. There's some psychology.
Human behavior. Yeah. Hey, Kyle, I've seen a lot of people chat about microdosing for inflammatory reasons, specifically like GLP. Would that be your sort of peptide of choice when it comes to inflammation, or is actually one of those other ones that you were mentioning before, which actually makes more sense in your mind?
It will work because of the adipokines. Adiposity is directly inflammatory. So GLP-1, anytime you're losing weight, you're going to lose inflammation. But as far as things that I'd use for inflammation, I'd go to my naturopathic tool belt before I went to other peptides, to be honest. Things like a really good quality fish oil or a specialized pro-resolving mediator that's like the next era of fish oils work really well. Boswellia serrata, I love that one, especially the the phospholipid complex that gets into circulation. PEA, palmityl ethanolamide, fantastic endocannabinoid receptor, activating anti-inflammatory that is naturally found in breast milk too. So it's like an amazing anti-inflammatory, an alternative to people who want some of the effects of CBD oil without the challenge of getting CBD oil. So those would be ones I'd go to first. But then KPV is a peptide as well that's potently anti-inflammatory, and it's been studied in IBD models for its ability to downregulate two of the key cytokines that drive the pathology of, I'm going to say it was Crohn's disease. It was either Crohn's or colitis, but I'm like 80% sure it was Crohn's disease. It reduced TNF-alpha and interleukin-6, which are your markers of inflammation. As far as the GLP-1s, are they amazing for inflammation? Pure, in my opinion, only because of the adiposity reduction and the adipokines. There might be some other downstream metabolism benefits that it is helping with inflammation, but I think that's a little bit overhyped. So, and I mean, the GLP-1 does have a slight suppression of one of the inflammasomes as well, so that will reduce it a bit, but I just know there's so many better tools that I would use before using GLP-1s for inflammation that, it's a very expensive way to get to that effect. I mean, if you're doing it right with a good protocol, then that will be a side effect that might have some reduced inflammation from that as well. But I don't think many people are taking them for the purposes of inflammation reduction.
Yeah, no, I agree. Actually, like the sort of bonus 5 or 10 pounds that people seem to lose almost as like great. Like, I feel like people are like, yeah, it's my inflammation that I'm trying to solve here, but not necessarily maybe in their mind the actual, real reason. Hey, just a couple more questions, Kyle. Like, So obviously, so I'm a midlife woman, and I see a lot of peptides targeted towards me. Not necessarily, and I'm not overweight, sort of at all, but clearly, but I've got I'm in perimenopause, and I have all of these other sort of like symptoms associated with perimenopause. Is there a use case for peptides in this scenario, or is it more your naturopathic sort of medicines that we were just discussing that you think might be more helpful?
As far as improving quality of life during the actual symptoms of perimenopause or menopause itself, I believe still that the naturopathics work better. They are proven, and anyone who has had the support of a well-trained naturopath or nutritionist, I'd say the nutritionists don't really know the herbs well enough, but at the same time, the herbs, they need to be used properly, though. Like, you can definitely make things worse with the wrong herb. Like a stinging nettle root can be fantastic for someone or horrible for another. And Vitex, chasteberry is another one that increases progesterone, which may make someone's life hell, or it might make their life significantly better. So I really still like the botanicals for hormone support and sort of perimenopause a lot better. As well as making sure that the estrogens are cleared in the appropriate way. So like your indole 3 carbinol and your calcium deglucurates, DIM, they're all fantastic as well. There's some peptides that I definitely think can help a little bit, especially when estrogen declines during that perimenopause. You end up with a rapid loss of the integrity of your collagen structures. So you might have thin skin, reduced blood flow. You might even get a little bit of what looks like cellulite because of how quickly the collagen loss has occurred because the estrogens drop so strongly. So a GHK copper is really potent at upregulating synthesis of collagen. So that could be a great one to take topically to sort of prevent the rapid aging that might happen, or the appearance of rapid aging when estrogen drops, as well as sort of protecting your skin as it thins out a little bit during that period. BPC will help too, because it will also help with blood flow, vessel formation, and help with oxygen delivery. So you maybe not look as pale, and it'll help with those collagen networks as well. And the gut lining does cop a little bit of damage too as estrogen declines. Like estrogen, a lot of guys look at it as the devil, but it's also incredibly beneficial for lubrication of joints and actually help maintain the integrity of the collagen network of your gut too. So when women's estrogen levels drop, they have a bit more of a susceptible gut lining to damage too. So that's where an oral BPC can help too. And the other thing, estrogen and histamine are often related. I don't know how many women you see end up just with a sudden onset of histamine intolerance during perimenopause, but it can happen as well, and that's where supporting the gut can really help with that. But I wouldn't go as far as saying you need BPC. I would just start with mast cell stabilizers like quercetin or skullcap, or even the enzyme that breaks it down, DAO. You can supplement that as well.
Yeah, nice one. And I know, and you've said repeatedly that BPC 157 is completely safe, but then also one of its mechanisms of action is that sort of growth factor and the blood vessel growth and stuff like that. So there's no concerns with growth proliferation or anything, down that cancer route or anything like that, Kyle?
If you don't have cancer and you know it, then there's no concern. If you do have cancer, it could be utilized by cancer cells the same way that if you do have cancer and you have a branched chain amino acid, it's going to use the leucine, it's going to use the mTOR and the IGF that's stimulated from that. So it will not. I am so confident in saying this, and I probably shouldn't, but I believe that there is no chance BPC will cause cancer if you don't have it because of the benefits. If you look at the 10 or so hallmarks of cancer, there are at least 5 of them that BPC is going to positively benefit in fighting cancer and preventing it, versus just the one of the angiogenesis that contributes to its growth. I feel like that's such a 5 steps forward, 1 step back trade-off that I'd be willing to take if I didn't have it. But if I did, I'd be very cautious around using anything that triggers angiogenesis. Which is unfortunate because I feel the inflammation reduction that it can elicit for people by helping their gut health, by helping with oxygenation to tissues, could be a benefit. But I just ethically can't say if I always say if you have cancer, probably don't take any of the peptides, the BPC or the TB500, or the only ones I'd say are the PNC27 and there's another one, LL37. They're immune peptides that may help you a little bit in some way.
Okay. No, thank you. That's really great clarification. Super interesting chat, Kyal. And it's funny when you were saying, I was like peptides or naturopathy, and you're like, well, probably just your bog standard naturopathy, a little bit like, lifestyle or GLP. Well, probably protein and strength training and get your steps up, that kind of thing. Like, it's the boring basics actually work, but we're always after that little shiny object which may accelerate progress and but potentially to the detriment of things later on, which is super. We need to consider.
When you ask me a question and want the end result, I'll give you the thing that I believe will get you to that end result fastest or best or through the least intervention possible before I bring in a peptide just to show off my knowledge of a peptide. To be honest, there's plenty of them I could have mentioned, but I just say honestly, boswellias and PEA for pain and inflammation are going to help 80% of people, and then maybe it's 20 or 10% of people who might need the addition of a peptide to get them where they need to be. So.
Yeah, nice one, Kyal. Like, you are so knowledgeable in all of this that we've discussed. Like, I feel really grateful that you took the time to chat to me today. So thank you for that. Obviously, access issues. Well, there are potential issues for New Zealand, Australia, but LVLUP is, widely available elsewhere. Can you let people know of where they can find you and your information? There are several good blogs on your website as well, which is super informative.
Yeah, so LVLUP Health without the E's, LVLUP Health.com is our website, and our Instagram, if you just search LVLUP Health, not SUPS, that's a completely spin-off other company. But LVLUP Health is where you'll find all the information on it. And we send from America, we manufacture there, we send global. It's sort of up to the individual whether it depends which country you're in, whether it'll get through customs. Some are really strict. We don't send the countries that are so strict, we know it won't get through. But if the individual does try and bring it into a country where it's contentious, then it's a bit of a roll of the dice that the individual has to take if they wanted to try anything we sell or any injectable peptides, which we don't. It's the same sort of advice for LVLUP or for any other company out there. So,
nice one. Kyal, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
No worries, Mikki. Thanks.
Alrighty, hopefully you really enjoyed that bit of a deep dive. And, I mentioned on the podcast where I'd heard Kyal speak both on Tina Moore's show and Carrie Jones' show. So absolutely check out those podcasts as well. Super interesting. They do really great deep dives because both Dr. Tina and Carrie are in that natural health sort of world, and they deal in peptides all of the time. So I think you'd also really enjoy those conversations. Next week on the podcast, really stoked to chat to my friend Lara, Dr. Lara Bryden, another naturopathic doctor, all about pathologizing women's health and, maybe you're okay after all. So we have quite a really insightful conversation. That is next week on the podcast. Until then, though, guys, you can catch me over on Instagram, Thread and X, at Mikki Williden, Facebook at Mikki Williden Nutrition, or head to my website, mikkywilliden.com. Scroll right down to the bottom, pop your name in the box that gets you access to my weekly emails and everything that's going on with me. All right, guys, you have the best week. See you later.